Hello, today we're going to look at paper 2 of the AQA English language exam. It's 8700 and we're looking at the writer's viewpoints and perspectives. This video will be just on question 1, but it's worth looking at the instructions that you get given. So the first thing you need to know is that there are two sources. One will be a modern text and one will be a 19th century text. The other thing is that there are parts A and B to the exam, and each are worth 40 marks, giving you 80 marks in total. That's highly annoying because you have 1 hour and 45 minutes, and you're probably asking yourself how to divide that time. Unfortunately, my best advice to you is that section A is much the more difficult one, and you should spend 1 hour on section A and 45 minutes on section B. I'd do that as a mock and see what your answers are like. It may be that you need 50 minutes on section B and 55 on section A. What I wouldn't do is split them halfway. You definitely need more time on section A because there's a lot more to get through. Okay, well, section A is the reading section where you have to read those two texts, and section B is simply one written question. The advice you're given is, if I may say so, stupid advice. You're advised to spend about 15 minutes reading through the source and all 5 questions you have to answer. Well, the reason that's stupid is you only get marks for what you write in the exam, not for the 15 minutes you spend reading. So that's very stupid advice indeed. In fact, you'll find that it's possible to start answering question 1 straight away, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So this is what question 1 will look like, and again the examiners are offering you very stupid advice. They're telling you to spend 45 minutes on this section. I don't think you'll be able to write your answers fully in 45 minutes if you've spent 15 minutes reading. So here we go. You're going to read source A, and the good news is you only have to look at a very short number of lines. There are 14 of them, and then you'll have 8 statements, and you've got to pick 4 of them which are correct, which are true, and that question 1 will always look like that. So you've got the choice of reading the question first or going to the extract. Either way doesn't make any difference, I don't feel. We'll try reading the questions first because there is one potential advantage which you're going to try out in this video, see if this works. If I read the statements in the question, that might help me understand the passage. So I want to know where Anton is standing. I want to know if Anton's being carried away by a current. I want to know if Glastonbury is near total devastation or not. I want to know if the tents are floating down the hillside. What condition is the writer in? Are they shivering or in a thunderstorm? Are the people chasing their tents, and if so, are they half naked? Was the writer not pleased to be sent to Glastonbury? Let's find out. And the writer was not surprised to find it was wet and muddy. Let's find out about that. So I've got an overview of the passage that I'm going to read. However, what I don't know at this stage is whether some of these statements might be true, but not in those lines. So there might be a true statement that's in line 20. I don't know that yet, and the specimen paper can only tell me so much. I don't know if in the exams in the future they're trying to trick me. So I've really got to pay attention when I go to the exam paper to make sure I just look at those lines. If you've followed my videos before, you'll know I advise you to bring a highlighter pen, and I'm simply going to highlight lines 1 to 14. Right, here it is, it's source A, and lines 1 to 14 are going to be these down here. So that's all I'm going to read. Are we having fun yet? Anton is standing knee-deep in tea-coloured water. He is covered in a slippery layer of dark brown mud, like a gleaming otter emerging from a riverbed. The occasional empty bottle of Somerset cider wafts past his legs, carried away by the current. I mean, he says, with a broad smile and a strange staring look in his dilated eyes, where else but Glastonbury would you find all this? Well, let's see if any of the questions can be answered. Anton is standing in water covered in mud. Well, he is in the water. He is covered in this mud. That's going to be true. Anton is being carried away by the current. Well, there's nothing here to tell me that. So we'll have to read on and find out. So this is unexpected that I've got 5 of my 14 lines and that only seems to have answered one of the questions. I'm just flicking ahead. Doesn't look to have answered any of the others. So we read on. He sweeps his arm in a grandiose arc, encompassing a scene of near total devastation. In one field, a series of tents has lost its moorings in a recent thunderstorm and is floating down the hillside. The tents are being chased by a group of shivering, half-naked people who look like the survivors of a terrible natural disaster. So all that sounds very familiar. I'm going to pay attention to precise wording. So these people are half naked, not fully naked. So let's see how the questions are trying to examine my close reading. So there's no evidence yet that Anton is being carried away by a current, so I can ignore that. That's probably false. Glastonbury is a scene of total devastation. Near total, well, I can scan for devastation there. And it is near total devastation. What is he waving his arm about at? Well, is he in Glastonbury? Yes, he is, so I'm going to say that's probably true. All the information so far says it is. The moorings of the tents are floating down the hillside. Well, we've got floating down the hillside. What is it? A series of tents has lost its moorings in a recent thunderstorm and is floating down the hillside. Now, this is difficult here because what's floating down? A series of tents is, but this just says the moorings of the tents are floating. So that is a real test of our understanding. And it looks like this is false here because it's not the moorings that are floating, it's the whole tents in this extract. So at the moment, I'm going to say that's false. The writer is shivering and caught up in a thunderstorm. Well, there is a thunderstorm. There it is. I don't know if the writer is shivering yet. So at the minute, that's not a true point. At first, the writer was not pleased to be sent to Glastonbury, or we haven't got there yet, so we're going to need to read on. When I was told that the Sunday Telegraph was sending me to experience Glastonbury for the first time, my initial reaction was one of undiluted horror. Still, I thought, at least the weather was good. England was in the grip of a heat wave. Okay, so let's go back. I've got the word shivering here and thunderstorm, and I scanned for thunderstorm, and I can also scan for shivering, which is here somewhere. A group of shivering. So it's not the writer who's shivering, it's the group. So I've got to pay attention. Close reading again, so that's going to be false. Half-naked people running after their tents. Yes, I remember that those people were half-naked, so that's going to be correct. Unless they're not running after the tents. Let's check. The tents are being chased by a group. Okay, so they are running after the tents, I suspect. That's probably true, because if they're chasing, they can't really be walking, can they? At first, the writer was not pleased to be sent to Glastonbury. So my initial reaction was one of undiluted horror. Yep, that sounds like he wasn't pleased. Or she wasn't, I haven't checked actually. The picture suggests it's a female, sorry. The writer was not surprised to find it was wet and muddy. Well, I thought at least the weather was good. So she would have been surprised to find it muddy. Now, this last question, maybe G and H, are the only ones that really test your understanding of what you're reading. The others are just questions of fact. G and H are questions of inference, where you have to, as English teachers like to say, read between the lines or interpret. But actually that's not really difficult. The most difficult part of this test is actually picking the wrong lines to look at. It's quite easy to read ahead down here and find something else. For example, we could have found down here that Anton was shivering, and therefore we would have had a different idea. Now, the other problem I might have had was in my rookie error, and this is something I know I often do when I'm practicing exams. I skip the blurb at the top, and that's caused me a bit of problems because I was assuming the writer was Anton, and I hadn't fully read this. So that's just a reminder to you that nothing is irrelevant. So Elizabeth Day is the reporter, and that isn't Anton. That could be important. I'm lucky in this question that I didn't have to distinguish between the two, but I might have done because it would be a test of my close reading. And if I'd got Elizabeth Day confused with Anton, I would have been in big trouble. Okay, well, let's go and look at the mark scheme. So did we get them right? Yes, we thought that one was true. No, we thought that was false. Yes, we got that one was true. We knew it was the tents that are floating down the river, not the moorings, so that was false. We knew that there was a thunderstorm, but it was the group that was shivering, not the writer, so that was false. Yes, we inferred that the half-naked people must be running because they're chasing the tents. We also realised that the writer wasn't pleased because it was described as a horror show. And the writer was not surprised to find it was wet and muddy. Yes, we realised that it was, she thought it was going to be sunny, and therefore that was false. Now, you can see the problems here is that we're being asked to do some skills which this question doesn't actually do. So the examiners think we have to interpret, but actually there's very little interpretation in these. They're basically true or false, quite obviously. And they're claiming that this information is implicit, in other words, it's not obvious, but really these were all obvious points. Do we have to select and synthesize the evidence? Well, synthesize means drawing it all together, and actually we didn't, did we? So one of the problems of this question is that it's actually a really, really easy question. The difficulty that the examiners think is in the question isn't. It's not in the text. The text itself won't be difficult, and as long as you're reading to check that the right people are doing the right things, the questions themselves aren't difficult. But I will give you that warning again. What is going to be difficult is that first instruction, and here it is, making sure you only answer from the lines that the exam tells you to look at. One other final problem you might have is realise that it's only 4 marks and rush it. I wouldn't rush it. Double check your answer to each question, as I did in this video, to make sure you get it 100%. There's really no excuse for not getting 100% in this, so long as you check each answer by finding the keywords in the text and then reading a bit before the keyword, a bit after the keyword, and that's how we checked to see if each part of the statement was correct. So, hopefully you can now get 100% in this question. If you'd like any more videos on this exam, or anything else in fact, don't forget to subscribe.